That's not even a sentence. Greetings, everyone. My name is The Adipose, and welcome to the Doctor Who review. Today, we're going to be reviewing The Girl Who Died, or rather, she didn't, which seemed to be the way the episode ended up. Obviously, this is a strict no spoilers review, so I didn't watch the trailer at the end, and none of the people here either did or they won't be kind of talking about it. So this is a completely kind of blind talk through the episode and about what might be kind of coming in the futures. So I'm going to start with the big elephant in the room, which is unfortunately that I didn't feel this episode was very good. However, like I've said in the past, creative things are hugely subjective. So I'm sure there'll be some people kind of going, it was amazing. And other people that were sitting there going, it was awful. And everyone else will be on the scale of something in between. But unfortunately, between the scale of amazing and awful, I'm more over towards the awful for this particular one. But let me defend it first of all. I think this episode had lots of good quality ideas in it. It doesn't look bad on paper because obviously Doctor Who's a time traveler. He can go forward and back in time. Therefore, every series you need, some sort of historical figure, and, Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria, Shakespeare, yada, yada, yada. And obviously they've kind of gone, right, so this time our historical figure is going to be the Vikings. There we go. Good idea. We've got a bit of a theme this time of the Doctor kind of interfering with time, bit of a timey-wimey, Davros kind of forward and backy type thing. The ghosts we were kind of playing with the idea of kind of causality and the paradox thing we were talking about last week. So this time we're going to create a kind of an immortal girl who's kind of, brought back in time. And the Doctor this time is actually going to interfere with the rules of not interfering with time. Okay, good idea. Tick. We've then got the idea of the Doctor finally explaining why he's got a face that we've seen before. Good idea. Tick. Then we've got... Oh, there was something else. There's lots of things in this episode that you just, on paper, you kind of go, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. However, it was either the execution or maybe just the ideas in practice don't work as well as they kind of do in principle. But overall, you kind of put it together and it was just a bit kind of unsatisfying. My first complaint is with the Vikings and with the enemy. The enemy was crap. He wasn't scary. If the word of crap offends you, then just mentally bleep it out and put the word silly in. He had a big horned hat on his head, which Vikings never wore. So, historically it's kind of gone. I mean, even they could have the Doctor could have had like a smug reference with Clara kind of going, where are the Vikings' horns? And the Doctor kind of going, well, they never actually really wore horns. And then, that would have been nice. But, it kind of breaks not the realism, but it for those of you that kind of know your history a little bit better, it kind of takes you out of, it makes you instantly kind of go, well, this is quite clearly fake. And the enemy wearing that huge horned thing, golden stuff, and like an eye patch, he just looked silly. He wasn't scary. And I think the other thing is that enemies that just want to fight aren't interesting and aren't scary. And I think this is one of my problems with the Sontarans, is that the Sontarans at the very least are funny. Strax is funny, and when the Sontarans come up, they're so kind of like, Sontar. They've got this they've got a charisma about them which makes them kind of likable, but they're not scary. And so those of you that watch my kind of regular streams and regular shows will know I like a little bit of wrestling, and there's lots of kind of motivators for wrestlers. I want to be the best. Good motivator. I want to be the champion, good motivator. I want revenge, good motivator. I'm a sneaky bastard who just wants to be rich, fine, good motivator. But just occasionally in wrestling, they kind of make a character that just goes, I like to fight. And they often do it with Irish characters, which is a little bit racist, but it never works because, how do you get behind a character that just wants to fight? They're neither scary enough to be a heel or evil enough to be a heel, and neither heroic enough to be a kind of good guy. A person that just likes to fight it's a lazy gimmick that doesn't invest you emotionally in anything either way. And plus it's very unrealistic. I mean, people that enjoy sport, fine. People that enjoy boxing, fine. But people that love to go on the battlefield in a situation where they might actually die. I mean, really, does anyone actually do that for a hobby? Maybe I'm seeing the world through rose-tinted glasses, but I'm not buying that. And you kind of put it together and you've got the Vikings that are kind of like, you know, it's a good death today on the battlefield. And you've got the enemies that are kind of like, we shall fire. And you've got two groups of people that just want to fight. So why should I care? And it's not, like I said, it doesn't make the enemy kind of seem scary or particularly evil. It just makes them kind of there and something that the Doctor's kind of going to deal with. And then when you kind of put that together with the fact that the enemy was then kind of defeated by videotaping them with a Benny Hill theme song and an electric eel to the face, it just makes them a bit of a waste of our time. You know what I mean? Like, they could have... I don't know, I don't want to kind of throw out ideas and stuff. I mean, unless that was the idea, you know, to just have a kind of silly enemy. But then why would you have an idea for a kind of silly enemy? I mean, it might be because last week's was pretty scary. And then before that, the Daleks were pretty dramatic. But why, as an alternative, would you then kind of go scary? And it was weird as well, because they had there were a few moments in it, which I think were actually done really, really nicely. There was that moment where the Doctor starts translating baby, which in theory is silly, but actually, bizarrely, that one actually works the other way around, because he's standing there translating baby, and there's actually something quite emotional about hearing a baby cry, and especially now I'm a dad, I do kind of get it. You know, if Izzy started crying right now, I would probably, and Clara couldn't get to it, I would abandon the show and I would go and pick her up. And there's something about a baby's cry that's really quite powerful, and you're drawn to it. And when the Doctor was translating that cry and kind of going, I'm scared, I'm terrified, I need you, whereas my mummy, you know, that wrenches on you, you know, you feel, oh my God, you know, something really bad's going to happen to this baby, I need to help him. And then that really bad thing turns out to be a horned alien with an eye patch who's scared of being uploaded to YouTube in a slightly embarrassing video. You see that kind of wrench, you know, they set this, you know, they really could have taken that baby thing not further, because you don't want to see a baby in peril. But they simultaneously seem to be kind of going, this was a really deep emotional thing and these people could really die. And they're also kind of going, these enemies are wacky, fun guys. Let's all laugh, you know? And so you end up with this thing that's neither funny nor dramatic, you know, because you have a little bit of both and it doesn't really work. And the other thing is, things that are trying to be funny are very rarely funny. You know, and when you've got kind of Clara there, and I have to say Clara doesn't do smug very well. When Clara does smug, she comes off as irritating. When you got Clara there with a video going, oh, look, I've added Benny Hill. There you go. You know, she's really quite dislikable in those moments. And I like Clara. I think she's a good assistant. I've talked about in my reviews how much I like the kind of development of her characters. But, you know, when she kind of sticks her head out and is like, you just want to go, oh, God. So I think that was a big reason why the episode didn't really kind of work. It was a bit kind of uninventive as well. I mean, there's a few reasons why it was uninventive. But firstly, using the Vikings to kind of go, we're warriors who like to fight was uninventive. And also, I mean, I said this, I was chatting to someone earlier and I said this idea. They've gone for a guest star. Fine. Great. It's nice to see, Frank Skinner last time. Great. The odd little actor in there, you kind of go, oh, it's them. And they're normally really good. So they've gone for this girl from Game of Thrones. But it almost feels like they've kind of gone, right. So we need a girl in a kind of medieval style setting. Oh, well, there's this girl who plays a girl in a medieval kind of setting. We could just kind of, basically just kind of plug her in. And you kind of look at it and it's like, the same kind of brown clothing, the similar kind of hair. It feels like really uninventive casting, rather than kind of showing us another side of someone's personality or kind of character or something else they can do. It feels like they kind of went, look, here's that character from Game of Thrones plot. It's a bit like, supposing they had, what's his name? Who's the guy that plays Sherlock these days? He's got the long name. I'm gonna kick myself when you tell me the name. But that's ringing to bug me. But him, someone tell me here. The guy that plays Sherlock. If they had him in Doctor Who, that would be awesome. And they would be a guest star for an episode or 2 episodes, and they'd give him a really interesting role, and he'd get his teeth in. And you'd be like, man, that's a good actor playing a really good role. And it's different, and I saw him doing that. They made a good guy or bad guy, but something really kind of like dramatic, and it's cool and it's different. And Benedict Cumberbatch, there you go. But supposing they took Benedict Cumberbatch and they kind of basically made him like they basically made him a Sherlock Holmes character. I might have said Shakespeare then, sorry. Supposing they put Benedict Cumberbatch in there and basically made him Sherlock Holmes in Doctor Who. It's easy, isn't it? And it wouldn't really work. You'd be like, well, what's Sherlock doing in Doctor Who? That doesn't really work. And for me, it felt a little bit like this with the Games of Thrones character. It's a bit like, why have they just kind of plonked her over? For this kind of medieval role. I mean, absolutely put her in the show, no problem with it. Put the other characters in the show, but it feels. I mean, maybe I'm being overly critical. I mean, the thing is, when you like an episode, and this is, I think, one of the differences between me and Spud in this is, when I like an episode, I will defend the bits of it which are poor, and when I dislike an episode, I get very, very picky on lots of little minor things and kind of make them out to be bigger than they are. But to me, it just felt like this. Speaking of minor things to get really picky about, and yes, this is very pedantic, this is very, very, very picky, but it's immersion breaking. Look at this. Clara's hair. What the hell? It is, she was kidnapped outside the TARDIS. No, wait, no, wait. She was flying around in space in a spacesuit, terrified, about to die, had a creature crawling up inside her. She then got dumped outside the TARDIS, kidnapped by a Viking, was put in a longboat for 2 days while wearing irons, marched across goodness knows how long to get to a kind of Viking village, or whilst in chains, and her hair is perfect. And it just looks like she's come out of a salon. It's glossy. There's none of it's like, it's combed kind of neatly in the middle across the little thing. And it's just like, am I out of line on this one? I mean, maybe hair just falls naturally into place. Obviously, I don't really have any, so I don't really kind of know, so maybe I am just being, far too kind of picky on this. But every time I kind of saw her kind of walking past, looking so glam, it just felt kind of like someone's just before you kind of gone in there, you've kind of gone, oh, well, she's just been touched up before she kind of goes in, touched up in the hair department before a Gryffindor gets kind of on this one. But maybe I'm being overly picky on that one. But, like I said, if I don't like it, I'm going to get overly picky on it. And I know I'm being very moany about it. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you the big good thing about this episode. The good thing about this episode. I am really interested to see where they go with it next week. I think it was a crappy episode with a nice cliffhanger where the Doctor sets up this, I've created an immortal person, more or less immortal person, and I'm not sure what effect that's going to have, and that's not going to be great. And then you had that kind of scene with the girl kind of standing there, which was also kind of weirdly done, kind of a very, very slow going around the camera with what appeared to be shooting stars in the background. And I know it was supposed to be the passage of time. Well, I assume it was supposed to be the passage of time passing, even though she found a really interesting mounted to sit on. And she, I really do want to see what happens next week. I paused it. I didn't see the trailer. I don't know where they're going to go with it. I don't know if it's now going to be a modern day episode or whether it's going to be a, just a few years on type episode. I mean, the possibilities are ending. I mean, they could come back 500 years later, 1,000 years later, in modern day times, the future, the very, very distant future, or even, all of them. The next episode, they could spend time kind of going up and down her time stream and kind of do with things. I mean, they're having a bit of a timey-wimey theme. And if she's immortal, then they could go back and forward. And they've got that thing with the second chip. So who can she save? How does she deal with that power? And imagine you had the power to save one person in the world. Just one. Who would you save? Your mum, your dad, your wife, your husband, your kid, your other kid. Can she even have kids? Which kid does she save? I mean, imagine you had that power, that responsibility. I mean, that would eat away at you, wouldn't it? I mean, that's a cursed power to have. I mean, I think it really has set up a really interesting way to kind of go with it. And yes, I've been moaning about the actress not being given a lot to do and being the same thing, but they've definitely set up things where they can do interesting things with her. And I can see some people in the chat saying, hey, wait, Daddy, there might be good stuff coming next week. And yes, they will, but that doesn't actually improve this episode. I moaned about the same thing when I reviewed House of Cards Series 3, is that anything that only exists to set up the thing that comes afterwards is a waste of my time. You know what I mean? I mean, by all means, set things up that come later, but then go back and kind of go, let's just improve this a bit. And I mean, and it's an opinionated thing. I can see that Laura here is kind of saying that she liked the Benny Hill bit. I thought it was absurd, but people are different, and maybe kids will maybe kids will have enjoyed the faster paced defending against the monsters type idea, the less scary. I mean, there's no way in hell I would show Izzy the two really scary ones with the ghost episodes, but I'd probably show Izzy, in a year or two, I'd probably show Izzy that episode. It wasn't particularly scary, so, there's a time and a place for a different feel to the episodes. Some people are now in the chat are talking about the David Tennant flashback. I'm kind of caught on it. I'm kind of coming up with logical issues about it because what you're in theory being told there is, and I'm filling in blanks. What you're being told here is that Matt Smith's Doctor, at the point of Matt Smith's Doctor dying, sowed a seed that the new face needed to look like that guy. I can't remember the Roman guy, to remind the future self to always save one or make a difference or try and save people. But why? The Doctor always saves people and had been that David Tennant character that saved that Roman guy, and he'd also been the David Tennant character that got later, who then saved people when he shouldn't have done. Do you remember the lady on Mars? He saved that not elderly, but slightly older lady who he shouldn't have saved in time, and then she went and killed herself because she realized that time had been rewritten or something like that. So he's been a character that saved people when he shouldn't before, and he would have known that at the point where he regenerated. Also, Matt Smith at that point he died of old age because he'd literally spent hundreds of years looking after a small little village, basically sacrificing himself to save a group of people that he barely knew or did know by the time he got to the end of it. But you know what I mean? Yeah, my point is, why on earth would Matt Smith at that point go, I need to remind my future self to save people? If Matt Smith had regenerated in the middle of being an absolute knob, if he'd been regenerated and he was like, oh God, I've been so selfish, I've done a horrible thing, I hate what I've become. I mean, that would also set up why Peter Capaldi was so kind of like, tell me, God, am I a good man? In the first series. But no, Matt Smith died saving a small village of people. He completely worked on saving the individual. So why on earth would the Doctor then kind of go, I need to remind myself to save the individuals? It doesn't make any sense. That said, it was cool seeing David Tennant for a little flashback. It was cool seeing Donna. It was cool that they did the reference. It was cool that they kind of joined the circles. But don't you, like I said at the very beginning of this review, like good ideas, not done particularly well. For me, that didn't kind of go, yes, that was the reason. That's why he did it. That's why that works like that, blah, 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 blah. Instead, it makes me go, huh? But what about this with that, with this, with that, and this with that? And it doesn't feel true to itself. It feels like something bolted on. I mean, maybe that was the problem with this episode. Nothing felt real. The aliens that just like to fight didn't really feel real. Clara's permed hair didn't really feel real. The character from Game of Thrones didn't really feel real. This is the why he chose Peter Capaldi's face didn't feel real. Tell you what is another thing that didn't feel real. A device that effectively makes someone immortal. Why have we never seen that before? If there's a little device that stops them dying, then how did they manage to kill those two aliens really easily by attacking them with an electric eel? Surely anyone that had that device would in fact be effectively immortal. So all of those aliens would be immortal. So this isn't really a problem because all of those aliens have had that power for many, 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 many years. And it just so happens that this happens to be a human that has one. Or why did humans never invent devices like that if it's so easy to kind of invent devices like that? Or why have Time Lords not got one of them? Well, why did the David Tennant Doctor, who, I don't want to go, not invent one of them and stick it in his head? You know what I mean? It doesn't feel real. It feels like we need a device to make her immortal, so we'll come up with this idea. It doesn't really work, but never mind. No one's really going to think about it, so let's just stick it in her head. And, if the Doctor, Gryffindor's here, if the Doctor cares so much about Clara, why doesn't he stick one in Clara's head? Or, in the past where the Doctor's kind of said, you know, one of the reasons I leave my companions behind is because I don't like to see them age. I think he said that about Sarah Jane, you know, when there was the Rose Sarah Jane episode, you know, and Sarah Jane was like, why'd you leave me behind? Something to do with aging, and, you know, you don't want to see people die, and it's really, really tough. And it's like, okay, great. Well, just give them one of those things. And obviously, you know, in the real world, the actress wanted to leave, or the show was getting stale, blah, 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 blah. But within the plot line, if these things exist, why is he not doing it? You know, and again, it just didn't feel real, you know. And the thing about good TV, good fiction drama is you have to be able to believe it. And as soon as you don't believe it, the moment's gone, the drama is gone. And yet, to go back to the wrestling analogy that I've done before, or, you know, or even just a film, you know, as soon as you go, nah, at something, you know, that doesn't make sense. You've lost any emotional connection to it, because you're just sitting back and you're going, I'm not watching, you know, it just reminds you you're watching a TV program that's written by someone and just not written particularly well. And oh dear God, have I actually just had a 25-minute rant about why I didn't like the episode? I think I have. Sorry, this is a really, really negative review. But it's only so negative because I think they did things so well over the last 4 episodes. There was so much to praise about the last 4, and a few little nitpicky things that you might go this and that. But in this one, I'm just kind of going, oh, but I quite like the setup for next week, and the baby speech wasn't bad. And one little thing I might have noticed, and I'm sure lots of you may have spotted this one as well, the doctor at the end mentioned something to do with a hybrid race. You know, I've just created a hybrid, or he said something like that, which might link back to what Davros said in the second episode. Davros said something along the lines of, and I watched it back to make sure I was getting this one right. Davros said something along the lines of, the people of Gallifrey have a myth or a legend where one day there will be a hybrid race created between 2 warrior races. And then Davros then continued and said, and here it is, it's the race of Time Lords and Daleks, and then, you know, the crap came out the sewer and murdered everyone. But maybe this was a reference to that. You know, maybe the prediction on Gallifrey was true, that there will be a hybrid race created, and but it's actually a hybrid between that weird aliens with the teeth and humans. Conqueror 876 in the corner here is telling me to not be so negative, but it's a review show, so I'm going to tell you what I think. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me, and you can give me your thoughts, but I'm going to tell you what I think. Some of the guys in the chat have been saying that there may be another bootstrap paradox coming up to cover it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Doctor kind of going backwards and forwards next week. You know, will he even go back to where the Vikings... Will he even go back to where he saves that girl and stop himself saving that girl in some way, thereby setting up another one of these kind of bootstrap paradox things? It might be interesting. Style was kind of mentioning something along the lines of that. Jordan Rods has said, does death have any meaning in the Doctor Who world anymore? Too many characters seem to survive it these days. They seem to play with it an awful lot, which makes it unusual, don't they? They seem to sometimes go, oh, no, that character's dead. Nothing we can do. And at other points seem to kind of go, oh, that character's died. Well, we must save them. And the only difference seems to be how much the Doctor cares at that particular moment. You know, like he let O'Donnell die last week. He let them die. And in fact, possibly could have saved them. And here you've got a girl that he didn't know was going to die. And yet he's now doing everything to save them. I mean, why not have the flashback from Capaldi? You know, I'm moaning again. Sorry, I'm sure Conqueror will be like, you're still being negative. But Jordan Rod's got a good point that death has become a kind of... They play with death too much to the point that death is irritating or confusing rather than final. Jesse Messi agrees that Clara's hair is also an issue. Agrajag says, I quite like the story and I can deal with aliens invading Earth, but electric eels and horn helmets, no. Yeah, I like aliens invading Earth. I mean, I think you've got an interesting comparison between the episode yesterday and the Ghosts pair last week, because actually both episodes were effectively about, here's a small group of people who are stuck and there are aliens or monsters coming to get them. They both had that essential premise of we are under siege, you know? And it was done so well in the first one, the first pair, and then done so differently today. I mean, I just think, you know, it was a similar idea that just didn't Scam for me. On the plus side, though, Jen Devine says, I really love the episode. It made me cry, and that hasn't happened in a while. But two things I didn't like were the horn helmets and electric eels. Come on, don't they do fact checks at all? Just as the show Vikings led us to believe that there are fords around Uppsala, Sweden. But, you know, so some people did like the episode. So if you're watching this review and you really enjoyed it, then, you know, sorry, I'm sure there are good things. And if you wrote this episode, I'm sorry. But, you know, Gryffindor says, the first time we found out that Maisie Williams couldn't die, I thought of Jack Harkness. That's true. I mean, I suppose technically immortal humans have been around before. And she's not that immortal, because what the doctor actually said was, she won't die unless there's like an accident and she's kind of killed like that. So she's not actually immortal. She's just unlikely to kind of die of a disease or aging, which is, you know, a good few steps below Captain Jack, and he didn't have the same issue there. Again, not feeling real. Time Lord says the bit with Benny Hill. I don't know if that's a like it or I don't like it, but who knows? Clara Who says, give the episode a second viewing. That is not a bad point. I often like episodes more on a second viewing. Like ones in the past where I've gone, this is terrible. I sometimes watch them again 6 months later and go, it's not that bad. But we'll see. I'm surprised so many people have seen it twice already. Snowjoke says, I enjoyed the episode and it was fun for kids. After 2 quite scary episodes, it was nice change not to have the littlest hiding from the enemy this week. And that's true. Very true. Doctor Who is supposed to be a family show. So sometimes let's have one for the adults. Sometimes let's have one for the kids. And sometimes let's go in the middle. And that's quite a nice thought to end on. This was a nice episode for kids and people that don't think too much. There we are. Did you agree with me or did you disagree with me? I'll stick around in the chat and I'll read your comments, and I will also be around looking on YouTube at the kind of things you have to say about the episode and my review. I will see you next week to talk about the conclusion, and let's hope it goes somewhere interesting because it is a good cliffhanger. I'll see you boys and girls really, really soon. You have been fantastic. But the episode wasn't. Goodbye.
Follow, 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 Addy TV. Subscribe, subscribe, follow, Addy TV. Thank you for watching the show. We hope you come back for another go. And if you want to make sure you're the first to know, you gotta follow.
Wait, someone just mentioned it in the chat. They destroyed the Sonic sunglasses. Hurrah. The Sonic sunglasses were cool for the first second of kind of going, look, I've made Sonic glasses. And you all go, cool. And then he uses it again in the next episode and you go, that wasn't really quite so cool. And then he uses it again and you're like, stop wearing the glasses, dude. It wasn't actually all that good in the first place. Now I think about it. And hooray, they destroyed them. They snapped them in half and then used them as a minor plot device. Nice. And now they're gone. Let us all celebrate. In fact, let us all remember this episode, not for the Vikingness, not for the Game of Thronesness, not for the Eelsness. Let us call this the episode whereby in the first couple of minutes they go, you know what? These glasses sucked quite a lot. So let's snap them in half and be on our way. Huzzah for that. Fantastic. And let's listen to the singing again one more time.
Follow, 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 Addy TV. Subscribe, subscribe, follow, Addy TV. Thank you for watching the show. We hope you come back for another go. And if you want to make sure you're the first to know, you gotta follow, just follow, just follow, Addy TV. You need to subscribe.
What if he comes back with a sonic screwdriver glasses with like, you know, like that little bit of tape you can sometimes get in the middle, you know, Bubba Ray Dudley or like, you know, like special run of the litter glasses, you know, big bit of sonic tape in the middle and the Doctor trying desperately to kind of put them together. I'm caught between that's geniusly hilarious and even more absurd. I'd like to see him try to repair the glasses. At least. Yeah. Tricky stuff. And I can see some people here saying, oh, overly negative review. Yeah, but then I've been overly positive about some of the others as well. But, you know, it's all opinions, isn't it? But for the people that like it, tell me why it was good, and I will debate you. But be prepared. I like to fight.
Follow, 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 Addy TV. Subscribe, subscribe, follow, Addy TV. Thank you for watching the show. We hope you come back for another go. And if you wanna make sure you're the first to know. You gotta follow, just follow, just follow, you need to subscribe, and come and watch me.
Obviously, I don't actually like to fight. That was like a kind of a clever reference back to earlier in the show about how I said like things that just like to fight never really work, but no one in the chat's been like, oh, lol, clever reference, you know, cyclic kind of an idea. So that may have just gone over everyone's head. So it was supposed to be a clever reference back to my own ideas. Might have failed in that. I don't actually want to have a fight with anyone, in case anyone is gearing up for a fight. I think that's somewhat stupid. Unless, of course, it's in Skyrim and you're a thief or, you know, Batman or something like that, or a boxer, in which case it's probably socially acceptable. I'm not going to play the song again, because, you know, quite frankly, at some point, people are going to want to slit their wrist. Not that the song's that bad, and not that they should slit their wrist. That was also a comment which is not supposed to be taken, you know, seriously. You know, much like the liking to fight reference, which was supposed to be, you know, cyclic. I am eating a cookies and cream Kit Kat, which is quite unnecessarily sweet. It's actually hurting my teeth while I eat it. And made my fingers go all gooey, which is, you know, always attractive when the chocolate you're eating actually melts as you eat it. And you have to kind of stuff it in your mouth before it ends up in a small puddle on the floor. The thing I really want to say is that
Team of the week. Team of the week. If you're out of luck and your strategy sucks and there's something new you seek, try the team of the week. Yeah, the team of the week. Try the team of the week, people.
seriously, don't interrupt my thing. Anyway, I'm now completely covered in that chocolate. I don't know where I'd like to see him go next week. I mean, what the nice thing about this being a two-parter, but a two-parter that's obviously going somewhere very, very different, is I'm not worried at all about next week, because they really could go anywhere. I doubt it's going to be Vikings Part 2. I mean, those of you that watch the trailer will probably know more than me and have a rough idea where it's going, but I don't have any idea at all. So, you know, I think next week could be brilliant. I mean, it might be one of those things that ends up being kind of a classic, you know? I mean, is she going to have facial expression at the end? You know, you had the whole, like, he was going around and she was like smiling, you know, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive. And then the camera kind of went round and it came back and she was upset. And then her face kind of went like, you know, still, you know, it went kind of like, you know, looking at the camera. And was it like, you know, evil or thought-provoking or sad or determined? You know, it could have been anything. I mean, could it be that she becomes a kind of villain creature? You know, I'm immortal, therefore, you know, and so kind of eventually you know, maybe she snaps, you know, maybe, you know, the doctor's kind of said before that living forever can be a bit of a kind of curse, and like, outliving everyone can kind of make you bitter and stuff. I mean, could she become a kind of doctor character in her own right, but without the time travel? Or could she become, you know, some sort of kind of powerful creature, who's, you know, because you could have serious power by living forever in terms of like, you know, you'd only have to kind of climb the social circle once and you could remain at the top for a long, long time, you know, some sort of kind of seeking kind of thing, or even kind of vengeful, you know, angry at death, or maybe even kind of not suicidal, but kind of wanting to die, or, you know, something. You know, there's loads of different ways they can kind of take it, you know, and give the doctor lots of kind of emotional stuff. I mean, you probably know from what me and my reviews that I'm kind of more on the kind of thought-provoking emotional doctor side, you know, but, you know, what if he has to kill her? What if he has to finish her off? What if he realizes, well, not realizes, because he was kind of already saying it. What if he realizes he's created something which is a risk or a problem or a, you know, dangerous to the time stream, or starts rewriting huge chunks of history. I mean, she's a woman as well, so she could, in theory, you know, breed and breed and breed and breed. You know, what if the human race ends up all coming from her? You know, everyone ends up with inbred with like 7 fingers. You know, there's just so many different ways it can go. It's dramatic, it's exciting, it's really, really open-ended. Let's just hope they don't cock it up and make it, you know, about oysters or you know, some other immersion breaking thing, or at the very least just grab Clara and, you know, is it Nugia or Nutmeg, whatever, you know, you kind of get a head under your arm and just mess up her hair, just make it look like she's, you know, stressed in some way. Yeah, you know, that's all I've got to say about that. I'm actually going now. Have a lovely week, people. I hope I have made you think, if nothing else. And tomorrow we shall find out, no, next week we shall find out how right or wrong we were. Let's hope they pull it back together next week and we get something that truly makes us go, the girl who died. That's the other thing. The whole title of the episode was The Girl Who Died. I hate spoilers. And by calling the episode The Girl Who Died, you know right from the beginning that there's going to be a girl who dies. You get to the beginning of the episodes, no one's dead. Therefore, at some point, a girl is going to die. It's not Clara, because she doesn't look in particular peril in this particular episode, which only leaves the other girl. And plus, she's the other girl. The doctor kind of halfway through kind of goes, yes, I think I'm, you know, remembering things in reverse. Like, you know, she's going to die or something's going to happen, or, you know, it's too... There are certain times I think that you can put something that preempts. So, for example, last week's breaking the fourth wall speech about the, you know, who wrote Beethoven's Fifth, you know, type thing. You know, I thought was a really interesting idea, and it was, you know, very much kind of part of the episode as well. I mean, maybe this is my other problem with the title, is that it puts something into the episode which the characters don't know, which wasn't part of the episode, but just gives the audience additional knowledge, which is kind of irritating to have. I'll tell you what is another thing. The BBC guy that introduced the whole show said, because, you know, I avoid spoilers. I don't want to know. I just want to watch the episode and go, and just, you know, whatever they throw at me, I want to come. But the guy that started the thing, the BBC announcer, said, and tonight, the Doctor is going against Vikings, or something like that. You know, he mentioned the word Vikings. And so they start in outer space, but instantly, you know, they're going to end up with Vikings. And it's just like, what is the obsession with telling me things that's going to happen? Why would the BBC announcer feel the need to say before the show starts, here is a little bit of the show? You know, because you don't need to get people watching the show because they're already watching the show because they're already there. No one is, it's not an advert for the show, so you don't need to kind of show a bit to kind of get people to tune in, because this is actually when the episode starts. So what possible purpose is there by saying, and now the Doctor is going to take on Vikings? All it does is make the people like me that have been avoiding spoilers go, you fuck, you absolute fuck. And you can insert your own mental bleeps there. It's really very, very irritating. Yeah. There we go. Now I'm done. You look kind of annoyed there.